We had the first CultureCon in 2017. Spike Lee was there. Again, I thought this is one and done. We went from 100 people to 500 people to 2,000 people to 10,000 people. And it's just been such an amazing journey to just see the power of community. And when there's a true need, it's true. If you build it, they will come.
Boom. How is everyone doing? We are back again for another episode of Text Me When You're Outside. You have one of your hosts here, Brandon McEachern, and my other host, Marcus Allen, won't be able to be on this one, but we have a very, very special guest, a close friend of mine, someone who just makes me smile and also motivates me as I see her navigating these streets and doing magnificent things out here. You may have heard of a conference called CultureCon, maybe. And if you have, then you're going to be in a good treat for today. We have a very close friend of mine, Imani Ellis, is here with us on Text Me When You Outside, episode 14. Hey, Imani, how are you?
Hi, friend. I'm so excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for joining. And I wanna hop right into this, because people got things to do. Thank you for taking the time. I wanted to know, like, where did the journey start, Amani? Like, where are you from? Like, where did you go to school? Like, what was your major? Like, I only know you obviously because we've been in the trenches together, so that's how me and you know each other. But for those who don't know, like, where are you from, Amani? Like, how'd you get here? Like, the basics.
The basics. So it's a little bit of a hybrid story. I was born in Chicago.
Hmm.
My parents were missionaries, so we traveled a lot. So I've lived in Birmingham, Alabama, Montgomery, Alabama, on an Air Force base, Pleasant Grove, Alabama, Ocala. But the easiest story is that I say I'm from Atlanta because I've been in Atlanta since I was in sixth grade. So that's the short version is I'm from Atlanta, but not really.
Got it. So hold on. So let's go back real quick. So your parents were missionaries?
Yeah. So right now, my dad's a pastor. He serves as the lead pastor for the Georgia State Penitentiary. So he's ministering to incarcerated men in the state of Georgia. But they met in seminary, and then they traveled all around the southeastern part of the United States. And that's how we were living on an Air Force base. So kind of, yeah, grew up as a double PK.
Wow, that is so interesting. I had no idea. You know what I mean? Like, so I guess I'll follow up by saying, um, were you always like a creative person, or, it, I know you have a very strategic mind. You know what I mean? Like, did this happen on the bases? I know that people that usually, whether it's Fort Bragg or something like that, because I'm from North Carolina, right? So people that bounce around, they may have certain issues making friends because as soon as you get to one school, you got to shift off to another school. But like, tell me about like the creative Amani. Like, were you creative back then? Like,
Oh yeah, I've been creative like my whole life. My sisters and I used to put on plays in our backyard. We did The Lion King. We were charging people tickets. It was a whole enterprise, B. It was a
that's
whole
fire.
enterprise. But my sisters and I are all a year apart. So I had
Okay.
kind of built-in best friends everywhere that I went. And I love people. So my parents were always gracious in terms of giving us a heads up that we were moving. That didn't make it easier to leave my friends, but it did allow me to kind of enjoy like the moments. Even today, sometimes I think we own people or we own experiences, and
Mm,
sometimes the experience is to teach you what you need to know,
mm,
and learning that everyone doesn't stay in your life forever, and for me
that
that can
part.
be heartbreaking, but sometimes, suffering comes when you resist reality, right? And
Mm,
every relationship is not meant to last forever. So I think that's what it taught me was you can have these incredible friendships and they're so meaningful, but it
mm.
doesn't mean that you'll be in each other's lives forever.
Forever. Wow. No, that's deep. And let me ask you, where do you fall in line in terms of the Ellis sisters? Are you the youngest, the oldest, the middle?
I am the oldest, and boy, don't I know it. Like I suffer from eldest daughter syndrome, so I am working on that every day. Um,
Yeah.
but it's definitely a thing.
That's crazy. So the creative collective, right? Which is actually, I want to say, the parent company to CultureCon. Am I right on that?
Yeah, yeah. So the way we kind of think about it is yes, the creative collective is what in which everything flows, and CultureCon is just our largest event.
Got it. So from what I've heard through the streets is that you moved to New York pretty early in life, I assume. So what was this, 21, 22? Did you go to school there or?
Yeah, so I went to school in Vanderbilt in Nashville, and I majored in communications. And my mom took me to New York during one of those spring breaks, and my life was changed. I saw Rent the musical.
Mm.
I got splashed on by a taxi, and I liked it. Like,
What? That's
yeah,
like a little Hulu movie. You know what I mean? That's so cool.
right. And I think like that's the thing. It felt like I was living in a movie. I couldn't believe that things were open at 2 in the morning. I couldn't believe that so many people were in Times Square. And from that spring break trip, I was just like, I want to live here. Like this is where you go if you're
Mm,
trying to make it. And I believed all the hype. I believed it. And New York changed my life. I went to New York, 21 years old. I didn't know a single person, not one person, other
mm,
than my roommate,
mm,
and I got accepted into the NBC Page program, which is this rotational program at NBC. And it changed my life because I got my first job at Bravo, where I was working with the Real Housewives, and that was where I met Andy Cohen. I went on to be his publicist for 8 years, doing crisis PR, got him a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. We traveled all over the world together, and he's just so brilliant. His mind works so fast that like I it taught me how to think faster. And so I really learned so much from him, and I had the best boss. Like my boss Jennifer Geyser, I started off as her assistant. By
mm-hmm.
the time I left, I was the vice president. I was her vice president. And so I really got earned my stripes at NBC, and I learned so much about myself. I learned how to take criticism. I learned
Mm.
how to optimize criticism. It didn't it I love it. Give me feedback. Like I love it.
So this is like the Devil Wears Prada for like PR in a sense. Like
Yes.
you were kind of like a young Anne Hathaway, coming from the South. Do you feel like that kind of helped you out? Like, were you yes ma'aming and no sirring when you first got to New York?
I don't know how you knew that, but yes. I was saying, "Yes, ma'am." And my boss was like, "It's Jen. Just call me Jen." And I was like, "I can't." Like I
You're
literally
not
can't. She's
raised
like,
like
"You're
that.
gonna have to." But I will also say a lot of that Southern charm worked in my favor. I think you get more with honey than vinegar. So
Mm,
publicists are known for being pretty aggressive sometimes, and
yep.
I just not that I never had to pull that lever, but I really tried to understand what people needed to make it
Mm,
happen. I wanted us to leave mutually respecting each other. I'm not trying to be yelling at you at
mm-hmm,
work. Like, and
mm-hmm,
so I chose kindness and I chose understanding. And I also learned when it was time to stand up for myself, right? Because this
mm-hmm.
is New York. So I think the duality is what allowed me to be a really strong leader as the vice president.
Got it. And I'm pretty sure that, yet again, coming from the South, you were so curious about things. Like you wanted to know how things worked, I assume. So like, would you stay in the office a little later, just because you were just trying to soak this whole game up? And I'm gonna be honest with you, Imani, and maybe you can help me with this and help out our listeners too. What is a publicist? Like, what are you guys' functions? You guys are at every event. You're always the coolest. To your point, you're usually fast talking. Da 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 da. I got to get there. You're answering phones. Yada yada yada. But what is a publicist, though? Just for those of us who just don't know. And I've been in this
Yeah.
business for a minute.
That's
I
a
still
great
don't know.
question. It's a great question. And publicists have just now recently had the light shown on them, but
Mm-hmm.
we're in the dark. So the easiest way I'm able to explain what a publicist is imagine Olivia Pope,
Okay.
but for a celebrity. So we are the ones, when you read someone's bio, a publicist wrote that. When you see Kevin Hart on the Today Show, a publicist 6 months before that pitched him for the Today Show. So we are always working in the future. So when we're consuming things and a movie comes out, and you look at E News, and then you look at the Shade Room, and then you look at the New York Times, and then you look at the dinner that's happening in LA, and in your mind, you're like, wait, all of a sudden, this movie is everywhere. And it feels like everyone's talking about sinners and
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
there's a publicist who a
Got it.
year before that built out an entire campaign.
Mm,
They have a TV section and a radio section and a podcast section and a newspaper section. And their job is to make sure that if you're writing a book, that book's on the New York Times bestseller because
mm,
you've been strategizing around it. Now that's the sexier part. The not so sexier part is when your talent makes a mistake or they say something they shouldn't have or they
ab-
live stream something or they did something bad. A crisis publicist is someone who's like, here's how we're going to handle this. Here's the statement, here's the positioning. And the best publicist knows that you don't have to actually respond to everything. You need to respond to the right things because sometimes responding to the wrong things puts more eyes on something that nobody even cared about.
mm,
And so if a troll is like in your comments and you ignore them, nobody knows. When you start engaging with the troll and you're a
mhm,
celebrity, now everybody's like, oh, what's this? And so a good publicist is in your ear saying, it's not worth it.
mm,
Go take a walk.
mm,
Go take a walk.
mm,
And so it's a very beautiful relationship because there's so much trust there. And a lot of people think that they can handle the scrutiny of public opinion. But it is human nature to want to say something when people are saying something about you. And a good publicist helps you navigate, take a breath. Let's think about how we're going to navigate, this situation. So publicists
sure.
wear capes, okay?
Wow. Wow. That is so interesting. So nowadays, where people have, let's say I'm a young actor, right? And I got casted into a role, I'm outside, my 10 structure is boom, pom, pow. And I guess I feel like I don't need a publicist because I have my own social media. Publications are coming to me. I'm dating somebody right now, so they're able to help at least respond back to the person. And I'm saying this as the actor, quote
Of
quote
course.
unquote. I'm the actor now.
Okay.
And they may say like, why do I need a publicist? You know what I mean? Like I can do a lot of this stuff on my own. Have you heard any of that in this new kind of day and age of social media and things of that nature?
Yeah, and they might be right. Everyone doesn't need a publicist in the same way that everyone doesn't need a manager, right? Like you
Mm,
really have to think about what phase of your career you're in and if you need some of that strategic vision. So a lot of artists who are starting out and trying to figure out what they want to be known for, it might be too early for a publicist. You're experimenting. You're not really sure what your market share is just yet because you're still learning yourself. So I always say spend a lot of time in the freedom. You don't need a rush to build a team. You're going to know usually that you need a publicist because the rubber band's about to break. So let's say
mm,
people are reaching out, but you're not media trained. Publicists help with media training too. So you might think that the same thing that you can say on Twitch, you can say to the Hollywood Reporter, not if you want brands, not if you want
mm.
not if you want positioning. So it's not just about getting press, it's not just about, crisis, it's also about being prepared to become famous. And a lot
Wow.
of people are not prepared to become famous, which is why in public they're crashing out, because they don't have someone in their corner, or maybe they do and they're ignoring it. But um, it's all about kind of thinking about what your goals are. And if
That
your
part.
goals are kind of, I'm a content creator, I really want to focus on my brand deals, it might make more sense for you to have an agency or a manager versus a
Okay.
publicist. If
Got it.
you are a thought leader or a CEO and you want to be positioned for that, it might make more sense for you to have a publicist over a manager. And so
Got
I
it.
love that you asked, what do publicists do? Because it's not for everyone, right?
For sure.
It's for people who really are looking for that strategic partnership.
Got it. Got it. Okay. So thank you for breaking me down on that. So now let's go back to, and I'm gonna keep you using Devil Wears Prada because you just remind me of a young Anne Hathaway. I can just see you at that time. So at what point do you go, man, it would be dope if we created spaces for, because to be honest with you, you were one of the first people that I saw that was kind of uplifting the Black creative space. It was a thing, obviously, at the time when you created CultureCon, but not really. You know
Mhm.
what I mean? To be honest. So, like, what happened as you're working in a PR office that made you say, okay, let's start the CCNYC, which is for those of y'all who don't know, which is the creative collective. Like, what kind of spawned this thought process of yours? You know what I mean? Like, did something happen? Did you hear something in a meeting? um yeah, I'm very curious.
Honestly, I was doing really well in my job. I loved my corporate job, and I was like, you know what? I want to be a part of some communities in New York, like some creative communities, and I couldn't find them. So I knew
Hmm,
where the day parties were, and I knew where the night spots were, and those were both doing their thing, but I couldn't find a place of collaboration or just like we're young creatives in New York City. And I thought it was me. I was like, "Oh, I just don't know where they are." Come to find out, they weren't really a thing in
hmm,
2017. And so I think a lot of times we all have different kind of passions placed on our heart. The same way that like music and entrepreneurship is placed on yours. For me, it's been belonging and creativity. And I think that life is so much more beautiful with art and
hmm,
artists. And so I invited some friends over to my apartment, and I really thought that's where it would end, was 10 people kind of gathering. But when we left, everyone was like, when's the next one? When's the next one? And before I knew it, I was curating these rooms until it was 40 people in my living room. And I said, oh my goodness, too many people in my living room. And then that was how CultureCon was born, was a lot of people were like, well, when's the next one? When's the next one? And so we had the first CultureCon in 2017, 150 people. Spike Lee was there. And from there, again, I thought this is one and done. But we looked at the wait list, and there were over 500 people who had signed up for a ticket. And so we went from 100 people to 500 people to 2,000 people to 10,000 people. And it's just been such an amazing journey to just see the power of community. And when there's a true need, it's true. If you build it, they will come.
for sure. And what have people told you, even when they were leaving your living room? What was it that they got? They got that sense of community that you were talking about? Did they get educated? Was it both? Like, what was kind of those things that people were telling you, Imani, like, yo, sis, this is just you know what I mean? Like, what
Yeah.
was some of those things that they were telling you that they were learning or taking from CultureCon to make you want to continue to grow it?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it, were resources in different forms, right? I think a lot of
Mm,
times when we hear resources, we're thinking about grants and models, but resources can also be examples of mental fortitude, right? Someone who went through something very hard that you thought you were the only person in the world who had experienced being this experience. You thought you were the only person in the world who had built something that was in their head. Come to find out, there's so many other people in your network who can share how they did it, what they would avoid. So many problems that I face as an entrepreneur. I call people, I get insights, I use all those different insights to make a decision, but I'm able to learn from other people's experiences versus having to start it all by myself. And so I think there's the more traditional exchange of, I have a problem, can someone help me? And there's also the more, I think, intangible exchange, which is energy, because
mm,
it's exhausting when you think you're the only one. And when you leave a room and realize, wait, I don't have to do all of this alone. There's an energy that comes from the relief that, yeah, you're not alone.
And let me ask you this, and I'm pretty sure all of them have been your favorite culture cons. You know what I mean? But do you have one that really kind of blew you away? You know, like when you put it together, I'm pretty sure the first one was like, oh my God, like we actually did this, you know? Um, but I mean, you've been everywhere. I mean, Los Angeles, you know, New York, obviously, the birthplace of CultureCon. Like, but was there any specific one that you did, a small one, a big one that just had you like, yo, I gotta keep this torch kind of going right now.
Ooh, that's a great question. I think last year might have been one of my favorites. We brought in a theme, a camp theme, and I think it was all about play. And sometimes as
Mm.
adults, we're like, we really abandon our inner child and we don't play anymore. I love playing. I literally have Play-Doh at my desk. Like
That's fire.
I'm not letting it go. I think when I'm my more playful self, I'm my creative self. So that was a really fun theme for people to kind of we had arts and crafts. We had Tim's come out for the block party. We built this larger than life creative cabin where you could walk into a cabin. And I think people were just like, it's been a year and I wanna play. I don't want it to be so serious and stuffy and us all pretending we all have the answer. So I love every year, but I love 2024.
That's so cool, yo. That's so cool. And then obviously, you know, I see a lot of brands are connected to CultureCon. How do you go about that? Like, how do you go about choosing what brands to work with, what brands to bring on to the conference? And is there a conference that you looked at that you modeled CultureCon from? Or is CultureCon straight from your living room? It's exactly what you were doing in your living room and you just moved it to a venue, you know?
Mhm, mhm. I think in terms of brands, like we love our brand partners and we couldn't do CultureCon without them. I think the
Mm,
interesting thing about CultureCon is our brands really understand the assignment. Like they understand that CultureCon is the cool conference. Like you've got folks out there, Vogue was talking about our fashion at a conference. Like we really kind of took this idea of a creative festival and the con is a wink to a conference, but it's not really that corporate. It really feels like a more of a creative homecoming, which I think is really fun. And then in terms of the format, I get a lot of my inspiration from different parts of my life. So CultureCon, we're really scaling intimacy. So I wanted to feel like you're in that Bible study in my living room, but that it's got the innovation of Universal Studios, which is my favorite theme park. And I
mm,
also wanted to feel a little bit like the MoMA because I love a museum. And our team is so brilliant that we really do get to build it together. So there are examples of like interactive activities that somebody saw when they went to Tokyo. But I wouldn't say we modeled it after another conference because then I would have just gone to that conference.
mm.
I really am fans of everyone who's in this space, and I think we're all bringing very different experiences, and all of the experiences are necessary. But I think that CultureCon has become a place where people can kind of take off their cool and
Mm.
yes, all that like oh, the mean mugs and the velvet rope. It's like everybody is family at CultureCon, and that's what I love about it.
Man, that's a vibe, and I know we get into time. So, but before I let you go, real quick, Imani, I'm thinking about like the recognitions, right, and the things that I've seen come across, you know, timelines, you know, as far as people giving you awards and things of that nature, and being inducted into the National Advertising Hall of Fame. Like, yo, like, what in the world? So that's like, is like, did you expect this? Is it like whoa every time? Like, is there, you know, any one of these awards that or accolades that you've gotten over the past couple years that mean the most to you, you know, from them train rides going back and forth to New York, and I mean going back and forth from your crib to the office, that just was like, man, I just can't believe that I'm getting this right now. And I'm pretty sure all of them are like that. But
Yeah, I mean, goodness. I think sometimes even you reading it back, I'm like, uh, I no, I didn't expect any of this. I had a very clear idea of how my life was going to look, and I think that's why it's hilarious. I thought I was going to work in corporate my whole life, and I was happy to do
Wow.
that. Like I was going to be an entrepreneur, so I was going to make big changes in corporate. And I had told myself I want to be a VP by the time I'm 30. And God was
Mm,
so gracious that He allowed that to happen. But what I didn't know is He was like, "That's not all you're going to be.
mm,
That's not all you're going to be. You're going to be a VP. You're also going to start your own company." There
mm.
were so many times I was scared to death. I didn't want to do it. I wanted to do what was comfortable. And I think the journey has taught me that if you really are just brave enough to listen to your calling, then like everything else follows. So I'm so honored for the different awards. But I think what I'm the most proudest of is that I do this like scared. Like I'm not different than anyone else. I get nervous. I'm scared. I cry. I call my parents. I want to quit. I think a lot of times we are hoping that when you meet your hero, I've met so many of my heroes, and they're like, "Oh yeah, I'm scared," and I'm like, "You?" And so I think that's the what I'm the most proudest of is I do it anyways, but I am a human being who is building in public, and I feel like my community is like my highest priority. So I just don't want to let y'all down.
What an answer. You know what I'm saying? Because you actually included a lot of stuff that I was going to ask at the end, just in terms of, young people that may be listening in or, whatever, right? People who are our age that are still trying to figure it out. But I love the fact that you said do it scared. I think that is so powerful. And another thing that I've seen too, Imani, and then, we could definitely close out and I can let you go because I know you're busy, is that I've seen Imani Ellis a little bit more. Like whether that's on the socials or whatever the case may be, what gave you, and I think you answered this already, but I'm going to ask it again. What kind of gave you the gall, you know what I mean? And the bravery, right? Is it bravery or is it courage when you do it scared? Whatever the case may be. Um, for you to hop out there. Now, it's one thing to do it with the brand. You know what I mean? Like, yo, I got CultureCon, I got the CCNYC. Like, yo, these are my things. But to put your name and your face out there, like, wow. Like, what gave you the courage to do that? And I think I know the answer, you know what I mean, in the name of the Most High, but I'm going to ask it anyway.
Yeah, I mean that's it. It's my relationship with God. Like I
Hmm.
think I had to kind of get out of the more micro lens of like being afraid of how I'm being perceived and think of the more macro lens, which is that if you're hiding, you're not a light on the hill. Like if you're hiding, then people can't see. And I think about when I was searching for people and I found them, in the interviews with Oprah and Elaine Walteroth and Tracy Ellis Ross, and they were building in public. And if they had decided to do everything hidden, I never could have found them. I never could have seen that it was possible. And so sometimes I'm like, I am not built for this social media life. I'm an introvert and I want to live on a farm. But I know that and I hope that my story and my journey can inspire the next generation to take all that learning as their like virtual mentor and then do their own dream and build it their own way. When people say, CultureCon inspired me to do this in Ohio and CultureCon inspired me to do this in London, it just blows my mind. So then I think about what would have happened if I was in hiding.
Mm.
They never would have seen it. And what would have happened if the people I look up to, if you were in hiding, right? If I couldn't see, Broccoli City, like what would happen if we were all
Mm.
hiding? It's like we would
Mm.
all be thinking it doesn't exist.
Man, I don't have anything. I'm actually done. I think that was a beyond perfect way to end this. I am gonna ask my producer, who is a young woman who is doing her thing. Naomi, I wanted to ask you if you had any last questions for Mrs. Ellis here while we have her, just because, if you have anything.
Yeah, I have one question.
Okay.
So I'm 23. I just graduated college undergrad a few months ago, and kind of just like finding my footing in this industry in this world, just in life in general. as a 23-year-old would. And there's a lot of talk about AI and the use of AI and how it's kind of shaken up the creative spaces and maybe the overuse of AI. So I just was wondering your perspective on AI in your workspace, or also advice to people my age who may rely on AI because it's such a big part of their life right now. Because that's kind of something I see a lot with people my age. So yeah, just curious.
That's a great question. And nice to meet you, Naomi. My middle name is Naomi. So we're
Oh,
already
twin.
locked in twin.
Beautiful.
But I would say when it comes to AI, just the importance of identifying the swim lanes of AI. AI is great for efficiency if you need a brainstorm, but the best ideas, your best work are going to come from your lived experiences. And so every now and then, even for myself, I'm like, Imani, I have a library that's sitting to my left over here and I'm like, go read a book, because I think there's the long term and there's the short term. If you're never thinking, if a computer is always thinking for you, in the short term, that feels convenient. In the long term, it's like you're never going to self actualize to be the leader and the creative that you could be because your brain is not developed. You don't even have original thoughts. You don't even know what you think. And so when someone asks you when you're 30, Naomi, what do you believe? And your default is to ask a computer what you believe, right? It's like, think about what that means for the life you're going to live, right? And so when someone asks you, what career do you want? You don't even know yourself because your brain has been a computer. And so I think that's what I try to encourage people about is like, think about the short term and the long term. If you need to plan a meal plan, ask AI. If you need to figure out what matters to you, get into the world. Because when you're 43, wondering why your life isn't what you thought it would be, it's because you never used your brain. I really mean that. I'm like, you never use
That's
your brain. And I have to kind of remind myself, like, oh, this is an AI task. This is a Imani, you need to sit down and write it on paper task. Um,
mm, mm,
that's what I
mm,
would say. That's what I would say. Use AI, love AI. But when it comes to getting to know yourself and what you want and your values and dating, AI is not going to tell you your values. It's not going to tell you if this man is meant for you. Only you are going to know if this man
mm,
is meant for you. So
mm,
that's
mm.
my
I feel
that's
that.
my TED talk.
I feel like it kind of goes against our human nature just to rely on computers and like AI and everything. Like the more that we rely on it, the less we're learning, and that's like goes against everything that we're meant to do on this earth, you know.
There you go. There you go.
Damn. And I just witnessed the moment. What's going on? This is beautiful. Thank you so much, Imani, for taking your time. I know how busy you are. Me and you are real friends in real life. You know what I mean? So thank you so much for taking the time to rap with us and to be on Text Me when you're outside. So I know that I will be, at CultureCon this year, and I will be texting you when I'm outside. You know what I mean? So definitely hold me down and let me get a ticket. I'll definitely be in the building. I actually want to talk to you offline about some things about that too.
Okay,
But
perfect.
thank you so much. Anything you like to say before we dip off?
No, thank you for having me. This was such a refreshing conversation. I will see you all at CultureCon in October.
Booyah.
Bye, friends.